have a story for you about heaven and hell. Once a samurai came to a Zen master, Hakyun, and asked, "Master, tell me what's the difference between heaven and hell?" The master found meditating on his matted floor was quiet for some time. At last he slowly turned and gazed at the man. He asked, "Who are you?" "I'm a samurai swordsman and a member of the emperor's personal guard." And he said this with much elation, much ego, if you like. "You call yourself a samurai warrior?" said Hakyun doubtfully. "Look at you. What kind of emperor would have you for a guard? You look more like a beggar." "What?" The samurai shot back, growing red in the face. He reached for his sword. "Oh," said Hakyun. "So you have a sword? Pfft, I bet you couldn't cut off the head of a fly with that sword." The samurai could not contain himself. He couldn't resist. He drew his sword from its sheath and lifted it above the head of the old monk. Hakyun responded quickly, "That, sir, is the gate to hell." The samurai slowly lowered his sword, put it back in its sheath, and he bowed. "And that," said the master, "is the gate to heaven." Why do I like this story? Because it speaks a great deal to the pain that we suffer at the stronghold of our reactivity. The master knew this. The master knew that he sensed this in this young man, this young samurai warrior, that there was a reason or reasons why he was a samurai warrior. There was a reason why he was coming to him also. He was ready for change. But maybe he became a samurai warrior. He became this revered, respected guard in order to hide from his own pain. Maybe that pain was being bullied as a young child. Maybe it wasn't being validated or seen by his parents. Either way, though, he couldn't hold the criticism of the monk, this old, frail monk. Well, I'm superimposing some level of description upon this monk, but this old monk sitting there telling him that he wasn't enough was causing this reactive nature within this young man. We are in hell when we continually succumb to the reactive nature of the old. And so maybe he's just trying to prepare for pain. Maybe he's trying to avoid fear. And by making himself big and hurting other people, this young warrior, he numbs that pain that he's feeling. But he's reactive. When we're reactive, we're not in mastery of self. Now, is that even completely possible to be in conscious mastery of self? I don't know. Interesting studies show that we aren't. When we study the brain and the body connection, it's the body that is informing thought. And therefore, conscious thought is literally an afterthought. But that's another conversation for another time. What's more important is that are we at least aware of our reactive nature that's driving and controlling us and who we're being in the world? We're better than that. We're more than that. And if we take the time to be more cognizant and aware, we practice on a daily basis, even just being in mindfulness practice, conscious eating, deliberate breathing, deliberate walking, stopping and thinking for a moment and feeling what's happening in my body. How am I feeling right now? What are the dominant thoughts that I've had the last hour? If we begin to become more acquainted with who we are, we can see the patterns that are often repetitive, coming from the old, reactive. And so the difference between heaven and hell is reaction and response. It's the space. It's a space between feeling, thought, perception, assessment, and action. And all too often, I know in my life, I've come from this reactive place. I haven't revered my process. And I've just been on repeat. And that's honestly come from a place of wanting to be hyper protective, to keep myself, my emotional self safe. Push people away, be argumentative, be rigid in my thinking, all to protect my vantage point and my belief systems. Been stuck in hell. I love this story because it teaches us there's an opportunity to break that pattern of reactivity, particularly in the way that we relate to ourselves and see ourselves, our level of self-worth, but also how we relate in intimate relationship, in intimate partnership, how we show up. We don't have to show up like our parents did. We don't have to show up in a way that is hyperprotective because we've been cheated on, or because we've been manipulated or gaslighted, or we've been with narcissists. We get to choose to be different and create a different reality for ourselves. What's a reality that you are going to choose? Power and blessings to you. I'll see you soon.